today we are going to go back to India. That's interesting. Do you guys get tornadoes in the Deccan Plateau? Oh my god. Yeah, that's crazy though. What in the world? I've never seen a dolphin look like that before. Hello everybody. Roger says hey. So I've had quite a few people, especially in recent weeks, ask me to do videos on things outside of Europe. After all, there are people from other parts of the world that watch this channel, and just for my own personal education, I would like to learn about the world at large and not just focus on one specific thing. I'm genuinely interested in learning about how the world as we know it came together, and I'm going to learn a little bit about the geography of India, apparently. The channel that we're going to be visiting today is Geography Now, and I have seen a couple of his videos, mainly on the United States before, but I have no idea what to expect when it comes to India. Now, I don't have a super recent video to do comment time on, but we're still going to do it, and we're going to embarrassingly take a trip back to my very first video on this channel, which was on the history of India. I want to revisit those comments, and I'm sure that there are a lot of new comments on there as well, but this video is kind of embarrassing. It's my very first video that I did. I had no idea what I was doing, so the quality is pretty bad. The day I decided to sit down and just record my very first video, I didn't really know where to start because the history of the world is like giant, right? So I thought India because I don't really know anything about it. We're gonna take a look at those comments and see what you guys had to say. Okay, so starting at the top, we have Danny Struggles. That says, the reason why America was able to defeat the British is because you had help from the French, and if they didn't get involved, you would have lost. Yes, I did know that at the time, but for whatever reason, I wasn't thinking about that, so thanks for the reminder, Danny. Deep Baumik says, India is located in South Asia. The Indian Army also fought in World War I and World War II. This video is just like 5 to 7% of Indian history. Indian history is more than this video. Yeah, I gathered that. Obviously, I did not plan on trying to learn everything about Indian history just from this one video, which is why we're doing another video on India right now. But that was one thing I didn't know, was that India was involved in World War I and World War II, because at least here in the US, you just don't really hear about that part of it. The US teaches the world wars from a very US-centric point of view, so, which is one of the reasons why I didn't really have much of a clue about the Eastern Front of World War II. Aditya Verma says, you didn't kick the British out, you were British. You managed to break your ties with the British government and begin to live the American lands by forming your own government. Yeah, I mean, I do know the history of all of that, but I think Americans and British view the colonies a little differently. From what I gather, the British view the colonies as like basically traitors and that they were very firmly British colonies. Americans don't really view it that way. I think it makes sense, you know, because you have two different viewpoints on either side of the war. In our eyes, the colonists were several generations Americans basically at that point. Technically they were British colonies, but so I don't know, it's like a weird thing. I don't know, I think it would be a fun thing to explore actually, going back to that part of American history and kind of really digging in deep to all of that. So remember, this video kept talking about West Asia and Central Asia and so forth, so I had questions about like where everything really was. Chad Benjamin on here tells me that West Asia is the Middle East, Central Asia is the former Soviet republics, and South Asia is the Indian subcontinent. And then I just guessed East Asia is like China and Japan and those countries. Alexandra Trastamera says, China fought on the UK, France, and Russia and the US's side, so they fought with the Allies in both world wars. I do remember from some of the Japanese videos them talking about the Japanese atrocities that happened in China, especially during the World War II era. See, that's something we're just not taught. We're not taught about China's involvement with us in World War II. It's amazing how oblivious to that I was. And I still don't know anything about it because I haven't really gone back to learn much about it yet. We're gonna get to it. She goes on to say, when this video states India, it actually refers to modern India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. After India won independence, India was partitioned into modern India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. The partition was handled very poorly by the British, and the consequences are still felt today in India and Pakistan. The country was ripped into 3. Okay, I did not know that. I didn't know that Pakistan and... I feel like I've seen another video somewhere that mentioned Bangladesh used to be part of India India. Again, didn't India win independence in like 1949 or something like that? And I think Gandhi had a lot to do with that. Abraham Lincoln here, I've seen him comment on some of my videos. I love his username. The Maurya or Maurya Empire, Emperor's New Groove. I'm not really sure what you mean, Abraham Lincoln. Do you mean the Disney movie Emperor's New Groove was set back in the Maurya Empire? I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. That is my favorite Disney movie, by the way. It's hilarious. I love it. Shubham Tipple. If you want to know more about the history of India, watch the video Britain Owes Reparations by Sashi Tharoor. I've had a lot of requests for that video, so we'll probably get to that at some point. It looks like I've had a very just quick look at it. It looks like it's taking place at some sort of event or something like that, and there were multiple speakers and that there were also counter arguments to that. So I don't know, I would like to watch that video, but I would also like to watch the other speakers as well, because I feel like when you learn something from just one point of view, you really don't get the whole picture. But we'll definitely get to it. Nick Dowdy says the Himalayas define the border more. I think I had a question about what define the borders of India. So usually mountains or rivers define the borders of countries. So good to know about the Himalayas. Darren Reed says you deserve full respect for learning, but Asian history is 3,000 years older than yours. It's actually probably a lot older than that. Yeah, I know a lot of people like to rib the United States for not having a lot of history, and comparatively to the rest of the world, we don't. But I have to say that a lot of stuff has happened in US history, and you could spend years studying it. But I feel like the US went from frontier to what it is today in a very short span of time. So like I said, a lot of stuff has happened in our history. Telepathy Master says react to geography now India. We are going to do that today. Donovan Ray says our numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and most importantly of all, 0 are Indian. Arithmetic is harder in Roman numerals. I have looked a little bit into the history of mathematics before, and I did read that the Arabic cultures and India had a lot of influence in math and arithmetic and stuff like that. So yes, the West has a lot of those countries and those cultures to thank for our advancements in mathematics. Although the Greeks had math going before the Romans did, so I'm not sure exactly what the Greeks used for numbers. Techie says Aryan theory is just a myth created by Britishers. Never heard them referred to as Britishers before. I don't know anything about the Aryan theory. If it was mentioned in this video, I don't remember it. So if you guys know what he's talking about, let me know down in the comments. Sohan M says there are 4 class systems. The Brahma. Oh my goodness. If you are Indian and you're watching this, I'm gonna butcher your words. I'm so sorry. Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudras. So those are the 4 classes in India. I do remember that being a thing in this video, where India is very much built on a class system. I'm kind of intrigued by that, and I think it would be interesting to learn more about. Gar Draymond says, I think she dislikes the British. I don't know what I said or did in this video to give you that impression, but that's not true. I mean, all you have to do is look at the rest of my channel and you'll see that that's not true. Toxo Reed says, Hinduism is the oldest religion still in existence, so is the language that comes with it. About 1/3 of the total words in the Russian dictionary are originated from Sanskrit, and about 1/6 are totally the same. Is that why Russian doesn't use Roman characters for their language? Max Out says, Winston Churchill said to understand a country you must first read its history. At least you're making an effort, so well done on the channel idea. Thank you, Max Out. I appreciate it. I definitely think Winston Churchill was correct about that. You can't just look at a modern country and claim to understand them based on what's happening today. A country's history is what shapes it and what has created it to be what it is today. I certainly can say that about the United States. That's why even though we have a lot of European heritage here in the US, we are very quite different from Europe because our history is a lot different. Alright, so I think we're gonna leave it there. Thank you so much for leaving all of these comments on my video. So we're gonna go ahead and get into geography now, India. I've had a lot of requests to do this one. Again, I don't really know anything about the geography of India other than what that one comment said, that the Himalayas kind of form the northern border, and also that Pakistan and Bangladesh used to be part of India. But I really know nothing about what India actually looks like, how it's laid out, and I don't really know what to expect from this video. I don't know if he's just going to mention different parts of India and just kind of explain different things about them, or if he's going to teach more of kind of the actual geography of India, but let's find out.
So, we have finally encroached upon the giant India. Some of you have been waiting a long time for this episode. I'm just gonna say straight up, you all know India is incredibly complex and diverse. Even Indians have trouble understanding their own country. Obviously, I won't be able to scratch even the surface in this episode, but I'll try my best. A lot of you Indian geography peeps have helped me along the way, so thank you, and without further ado, let's begin.
It's time to learn geography
now! Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbie. This place doesn't even need much of an introduction. Everybody has heard of India. It's big, it's loud, it's colorful, and most importantly, it has a plethora of confusing territorial anomalies that I just can't wait to cover. Here we go.
This guy's very excited.
There's an old saying, India is a place where everyone is in a hurry, but no one is ever on time. First of all, India is located in South Asia, right on the Indian and Arabian Seas and the Bay of Bengal, bordered by 6 other countries, so close to 7, but that land bridge between Sri Lanka got wiped away like 600 years ago by a cyclone. India is divided into 29 states and 7 union territories, with the capital New Delhi, which acts as its own administrative unit, located in the capital territory. Keep in mind, New Delhi is actually just the name of...
Okay, wait, I want to go back and look at this. So 29 states. Okay. If I ever tried to name these, oh man, I think I would butcher these worse than the British counties or the English counties that I did. Okay, so New Delhi is up north, 7 union territories inside New Delhi. Oh wait, so India goes like all the way over here. Also, I didn't know that there was a land bridge between it and Sri Lanka. That's cool.
Which acts as its own administrative unit, located in the capital territory. Keep in mind, New Delhi is actually just the name of one of the districts in the capital territory, made up of 11. The largest city, however, is actually Mumbai, with New Delhi, Bangalore or Bengaluru, and Hyderabad following after. However, the 4 busiest airports are Delhi Indira Gandhi International, Mumbai's Chhatrapati Shivaji International, Bengaluru's Kempe Gowda International, and Chennai International in the south. You know why I'm smiling. This is my favorite part of any episode we ever make. Territorial anomaly time. India is loaded with strange borders and deliciously complex demarcation lines. First of all, what exactly is a union territory? In the simplest way I can put this, union territories are places that are too distinct to be incorporated into a state, but too small to have their own local governments. The first one, of course, is the Delhi National Capital Territory, where the capital lies. Chandigarh is a post-independent city constructed to replace Lahore as the capital of the Punjab area after it was split up between India and Pakistan. Then you have the island territories, the smallest one, Lakshadweep, and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The Andaman Islands being home to one of the last uncontacted people groups on the planet, the Sentinelese tribe, whom have been hostile to visitors and are therefore left alone, as well as the Nicobar Islands, which actually used to be a short-lived colony of Denmark. Finally, the 3 remaining...
Okay, I didn't know that the islands were part of India. Also, I feel like this is going the way of the CGP Grey video did on the difference between the UK, Great Britain, and England. This is a lot of information that he's throwing at me here. Yeah, this is already super complex and we're only 2 minutes in.
Remaining territories are former European colony towns and ports. Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, which are separated by about 200 kilometers across the Gulf of Khambat, and the most confusing union territory, the French-speaking Puducherry, which is actually split up between 4 district cities across India: Karikal, Mahe, Yanaon, and Pondicherry. Pondicherry is strange because it has 11 enclaves within the Tamil Nadu state. Oh, and in this area you can also find that experimental hippie-ish commune with a little bit of controversy. Look it up. Oh, and don't forget, here, the eastern states, also known as the Seven Sisters, are connected by this incredibly narrow 27-kilometer wide pathway known as the Siliguri Corridor. This pathway is like a crucial artery that completes the India puzzle. Or so you would think. Now let's discuss the juicy stuff. Now, in the China episode, I already talked about the disputed areas with India, such as Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh, the latter pretty much just belonging to India as it's almost completely inhabited and operated by Indians. So let's move to the other disputes. Now, as of 2015, the Bangladesh episode is already outdated, as India and Bangladesh have finally come to an agreement over the frighteningly complex former enclave-exclave dispute. In the end, India only lost about 40 square kilometers of land to Bangladesh, and now only a few enclaves and exclaves exist. Now
I don't know what he's talking about with this. I mean, obviously there was a land dispute and India looks like ceded some to Bangladesh. That's what I'm getting from this, but I don't know anything about what he's talking about. Also, I'm really impressed at his pronunciation of these words. It's way better than I would ever do.
Now let's head north. Now, when you try to draw the shape of India, you might want to be careful which depiction you use. Some might use this picture, some might use this, some might use this, and those that don't really study very well might use this. The point is, the whole area is like the most heavily militarized, diplomatically stressed out region on the planet. It's already had like 4 wars in the past half century. Basically, India, Pakistan, and to some extent China all want the entire area for themselves, although it's more of like a Pakistan-India thing. In the China episode, we already discussed the Chinese disputes with India, so I won't cover those in this episode. If you want to learn more, just watch the China episode. But anyway,
I have to watch that
earlier
one,
era
I
was a
guess.
former domain known as the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir that was under royal Maharaja rulers all the way up until independence. Currently, this place is split up by this fenced-off militarized line known as the Line of Control between India and Pakistan. Why is this? Well, in the quickest way I can put this,
Okay, the British are out. We get to take your land.
no, we want to be an independent princely state.
We're supposed to take your land, and majority of your people are Muslim, just like us. Even though your ruler is Hindu as well.
Hey, India,
Yeah,
if you help me, I'll let you secede my territory to your land with autonomy.
deal.
Ha! Your problem now! I love how Mike played India. He totally represents India. Oh, and keep in mind, Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, is less than 80 kilometers away from all that drama. The line of control meanders through the mountains until it stops at a point called NJ9842. This is where things get really crazy, because from there you hit the Siachen Glacier, the second longest non-polar glacier in the world, and this is pretty much the dead man zone. After point NJ9842, you hit the actual ground position line, a series of military outposts that extend all the way to the Chinese border.
This whole part of the world, I have no idea what it looks like. When he says glacier, I think Alaska, but this is a lot further south, I think, than Alaska is, so I don't know. Like, I think it would be really, really fascinating to watch some videos on this part of the world, and even into, like, China and stuff, because I know I've seen clips or photos once in a while of this type of stuff. It looks just absolutely spectacular, and so I think it would be fun. We're gonna have to do videos on all of this stuff because there's a lot to this.
That extend all the way to the Chinese border. That means everything in this area is ground zero for the Indo-Pak tension. And you know, the crazy thing is there's actually literally small towns of normal regular civilians living in these areas high up in the mountains, many of which just go about daily life, going to work and raising their families. Otherwise, they have a river dispute with Nepal and various river islands disputed with Bangladesh. Outside of all the dispute stuff though, India not only has the world's second largest road network and 3 of the world's top 10 megacities and their own space program, but they also have a copious abundance of landmarks and notable sites, way too many to list, but
I didn't know India had a space program. That's interesting. I hear a lot about China's space program. Maybe I've heard about India's space program and maybe some cooperation they've done with NASA in the past, but it's just not something you hear a lot about. Oh, I'm gonna have to look into that. You guys know, if you've watched my previous videos, how much I like space stuff. We haven't really done any of that yet on this channel, but I absolutely plan to because I love it. I love learning about like space programs and the engineering and the accomplishments.
their own space program, but they also have a copious abundance of landmarks and notable sites, way too many to list, but some of the ones that you guys, the Indian geography peeps, have told me to mention include places like the abandoned Danush Kodi Ghost City, Golconda Fort, the 4 pillars of Charminar, the Ajanta Buddhist art caves, the Ellora monolithic ruins, Mandu Fortress, the Golden Temple, which feeds over 100,000 people a day, the Gol Gumbaz Mausoleum, the Kalabantin Durg Post, the ruins of Hampi, the hill forts of Rajasthan, Shatrunjaya Hill, which is basically like a mecca for Jains, the Temple of the Bodhi Tree, Jal Mahal, Bangart Fort, the most haunted place in India, Mahabat Maqbara, and keep in mind, just like in China, you can find a Great Wall of India in Rajsamand. There's also
Really?
the Palintala Anjaneya Temple with the largest statue in India depicting Hanuman, and at over 150 acres, the Sri Rangan Attaswamy Temple, the largest
I can just see the history of India and all of this stuff right here. I wonder how old a lot of this stuff is. I mean, I'm sure some of it goes back thousands of years.
Hindu temple in the world. Oh yeah, and there's
Wow.
also that building with the stuff in the thing.
Taj
whatever.
Mahal.
Anyway, we could go on for centuries talking about India's rich constructed domicile, but what it lies on top of is even more fascinating. Now, don't make this mistake.
I'm going to India. All I need are my sandals and sunscreen.
Now, as the 7th largest country in land area, India has a wide range of landscapes, climates, and elevations that all contrast from one corner to the other. First of all, let's talk about the north. India sits on the Indian tectonic plate that essentially smashed into the Eurasian plate, which in return created the largest mountain range in the world, the Himalayas. The force is so
Oh,
strong
cool.
that it's estimated that the Himalayas grow about 2.4 inches or 6.1 centimeters every year. There's also where you can find Kanchenjunga, the tallest mountain in India, or the 3rd in the world, right on the border of Nepal. Keep your eye
Wait, is Everest in the Himalayas? It would have to be, right? Since it's the largest mountain range in the world. I should know this. I think it is in the Himalayas, and Kilimanjaro is in Africa, right?
your eye on these mountains. These are pretty much the source of most of India's major rivers that give life to the whole country. That's why India takes these mountains so seriously. You can also find the largest natural lake, Wular, up in the Jammu Kashmir area. Below the Himalayas, you reach the North Indian River Plain, sometimes referred to as the Indus Ganga. This is the most fertile part of India where the most important rivers like the Ganges and its tributaries flow. Heading a little south, you reach the Satpura and Vindhya ranges that pretty much divide North India from from South India. On each side, you get the West and East Ghat Mountains, which in return creates this massive triangle thing called the Deccan Plateau. This place is moderately forested, especially in the east, in the Chotra Nagpur Plateau, where you get a section of the swampy Sundarbans that they share with Bangladesh. Check out the Bangladesh episode. Head a little west and you get the dry Thar Desert along the border with Pakistan, as well as the Rann of Kutch, known as the Salt Desert.
The Deccan Plateau, the way it's situated between mountain ranges, reminds me of the Midwest of the US, because we have the Appalachian Mountains in the east and then the Rockies in the west, and in between that is where you get like all the tornadoes and stuff. You guys get tornadoes in the Deccan Plateau in India, just out of curiosity?
Dash episode. Head a little west and you get the dry Thar Desert along the border with Pakistan, as well as the Rann of Kutch, known as the Salt Desert. And finally, the only active volcanic area would be the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, with Barren Island having actual conical
that's
eruptions and Bharatan having tame mud volcanoes. Now here's the thing, although India has a relatively high population density, they do relatively well with maintaining their ecological footing. In fact, in 2016, they beat a world record by planting, disputably, 50 million trees in one day. They've also agreed to reforest about 12% of their country by 2030. The most heavily forested area being the seven sister states in East India. Now, one of the factors that contributes to this would be the fact that India has the lowest meat consumption in the world, with the highest population percentage of vegetarians at around 40%, most of whom
That's because you guys in India don't eat cows, is that right? And I'm sure not everybody is like that in India. Like you said, it's very diverse, and maybe not everybody follows that tradition or whatever. That's really cool though, that you guys have such a high plant-based diet.
most of whom are lacto-vegetarians that consume milk products. By the way, in India, when buying groceries, this label means vegetarian and this one means not vegetarian. Nonetheless, the remainder of the population does typically
Interesting.
eat some kind of animal protein, mostly in the forms of seafood or chicken, but almost never beef or pork unless if you are part of the Muslim or Christian minorities scattered throughout the west and east areas. Now, let's talk about the role of cattle, shall we? India has more cattle and livestock than anywhere else in the world at around 330 million. And it's interesting because since they have prevalent Hindu traditions, the killing of cows is illegal in many of the states except for a few, and each state has varying degrees of punishment for committing intentional cow slaughter. Keyword intentional. Cows accidentally get hit by cars all the time. Once a cow is too old to produce milk, it typically is released into the open to die naturally in the wild, ideally. Nonetheless, male cattle get it much worse, as they are deemed as kind of useless. Some places use them as draft animals for labor, some religious sects use them as sacrifices, but otherwise they are typically sold to the underground market for beef or hides. To this day, there are about 6 times as many female cows.
They should warn you before they show video or pictures like that. Oh my gosh, I don't want to see stuff like that. Like, I'm not personally a vegetarian, I do eat meat, but at the same time, I do feel very sorry for the animals that we do eat. It bothers me. I am an animal lover, and so why you gotta warn people when you're gonna show an animal being sacrificed.
Cows as male cattle in India, so that means, yeah, something's happening to the males. Nonetheless, India does have the 3rd highest carbon emission rate after China and the US, 4th if you consider the EU. However, emission per capita, they rank pretty low at only about 2 kilotons per person.
Some of you probably know that I just moved back to Tennessee from LA. I had lived there for the past several years. And yeah, smog is a problem there. Like, the air quality there is way worse than it is here in Tennessee. Now, it never really got that bad unless there were wildfires, which, you know, happens occasionally out there. Yeah, that's crazy though. Even that is outside the norms of LA.
Contrast that with Qatar at about 40. There are 94 national parks, 501 animal sanctuaries across the country where you can find some of the national animals like the peacock, the Ganges River dolphin, the king cobra, the Indian elephant, and the highest.
Wait, that was a dolphin?
At about 40. There are 94 national parks, 501 animal sanctuaries across the country where you can find some of the national animals like the peacock, the Ganges River dolphin.
What in the world? I've never seen a dolphin look like that before. That is a really long snout on that dolphin.
River dolphin, the king cobra, the Indian elephant, and the highest population of Bengal tigers in the world, which are all highly protected. India also has the most irrigated land in the world, which allows them to become the #1 producer of multiple products like millet, bananas, lemons, limes, mangoes, ginger, chickpeas, milk, butter, fennel, jute, and about 75% of the world's spices alone come from India. Speaking of which, food! Typically, you can find the staples roti, chapati, and naan in the north, idli and dosa in the south, and everybody eats rice. The more commonly commercialized Indian foods that we in the West grew up knowing, like samosas, tikka masala, tandooris, and my favorite Indian dish, palak paneer, these usually come from the northern regions of India. Seriously, India, you took spinach and made it fat. I
have never had Indian food, or at least if I have, it's maybe once before. I feel like Indian food is probably more prevalent in Europe or in the UK just because of your ties with India or the proximity you are with India. We do have Indian restaurants and food here in the US, but they're not quite as prevalent. I would say that Chinese food is definitely a lot more popular than Indian food is here. Plus, I don't really like spicy stuff, and I feel like Indian food is very, very reliant on a lot of spices. Whether they're hot or not, I don't know. But I don't know. I've just never really had Indian food. Maybe that's something I'll have to try.
I love you guys. Otherwise, the West is mostly known for their chutneys and pickled foods, as well as beef, since there's a high number of Muslims and Christians. The South uses a lot more coconut and has some of the best curries like porials, sambras, rasams, and tutus. And the East is known for having the best desserts like peda, mishti doi, rasgulla, or shondesh. Speaking of which, India is so diverse and complex that sometimes even Indian
I haven't heard of any of that stuff before. Probably because I've just never sought it out, but yeah.
people need translators when going to different states. It's about to get 10 times more confusing in about 3, 2, 1. Shashti Tharoor once said, "In India, we celebrate the commonality of major differences. We are a land of belonging rather than blood." First of all, India has a population of about 1.3 billion people and is the second most populous country in the world after China, with about 18% of the world's population. About 72% of the country is Indo-Aryan and a quarter are Dravidian, and the majority of the
Okay, there's that Aryan word again. I don't know what that means.
remainder are Mongoloid, Asian, and other people groups. They also use the Indian rupee as their currency. They use the type C, D, and M plug outlets, and they drive on the left side of the road. By the way, technically it's illegal for these banknotes to leave the country, but you guys have sent me a lot of them for fan mail for Fan Friday videos, so I don't want to go to jail. Again. Now keep in mind, those statistics that I just mentioned are incredibly generalized. Of the Indo-Aryan and Dravidian communities, there are about 2,000 different ethno-linguistic people groups in India, with about 645 district indigenous tribes, 52 major ones. So obviously we can't cover them all, but what we do know is that the North is very different from the South. For one, the North mostly speaks in languages that are all related to the Indo-Aryan branch, with languages like Hindi, Bengali, Punjabi, and Gujarati, whereas the South speaks a completely unintelligible Dravidian branch, with languages like Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, and Kannada.
Canada.
Otherwise, there's also pockets of Sino-Tibetan and Austroasiatic languages spoken in the far north and east.
Wait, so how do they all, like, communicate with each other?
Great question. Although India does not have an official language, there are 22 recognized national languages, and of these, 2 are the most prevalent, taught in schools, and used by government officials: Hindi and English. And very often, these two are like mixed mid-sentence. It's weird. Don't be surprised if you hear someone speaking Hindi and then suddenly...
Yeah, I have heard that a lot. I watched this documentary about this guy from India who came to the United States, and he was just going to like hitchhike across the United States. I forgot what it was called. It's on YouTube though. I'll have to look it up. It was really fascinating because whenever he would talk to the camera and talk to the people back in India, because he was like doing the documentary for people in India, he would always like mix in English words with the Hindi, I guess is what he was speaking. But it was the most bizarre thing. It's like every other word I could understand what he was saying, but for the most part I couldn't.
English. And very often these two are like mixed mid-sentence. It's weird. Don't be surprised if you hear someone speaking Hindi and then suddenly finishing off in English. It's like...
And I was like, "Padis," and I was like trying to, like, why are you even trying to do that?
I know, right? And in the washing machine, I told them, a Bob Saget with a chainsaw. Now, of course, let's discuss the one thing that goes hand in hand with India: Hinduism. About 80% of India claims to be Hindu, or at least part of the Hindu practicing community. Now, we don't have time to explain everything about the tenets and multi-layered philosophies and practices of Hinduism. If you want to know, just talk to a Hindu person. But basically, one thing you do need to know is that Hindu-driven ideologies pretty much dominate most of life in India, everything from family to business. You will see colorful, mesmerizing shrines, temples, statues, and rituals being performed everywhere, even in public. On the Bharat Mata, the Mother of India, statues are everywhere. She's like the symbol of India. The largest Hindu pilgrimage, the Kumbh Mela, happens every 3 years, rotating between 4 cities, in which the adherents bathe in the Ganges River and enjoy a massive festival with tens of millions of people. Like, seriously, you can practically see it happening from space. Now, a controversial topic in relation to Hinduism would be the caste system, which is basically a belief that people are born into a socioeconomic life that they are destined to serve into. Today, however, the system is more fluid and loose from what it used to be from a long time ago, and thanks to economic reforms, anybody with enough drive can kind of move up the social ladder regardless of birth. Nonetheless, India is home to every major religion in the world, even a few Jews, including the B'nai Menashe, an indigenous group that claimed to be one of the lost tribes of Israel. In fact, Judaism and Christianity actually had a head start in India way before it even kicked off in Europe. As tradition holds, Cochin, or Malabar Jews, migrated around 1000 BC to trade during the times of King Solomon, and in 53 AD, Thomas the apostle
Wow.
of Jesus arrived in what is now the state of Kerala to establish the first church in India. Today, most Christians are found in the southwest and far east Seven Sisters regions. India also holds the highest population of Sikhs, Jains, and Zoroastrians, mostly found in the north, and the second largest Muslim population in the world after Indonesia. Most Muslims are populated around the northwest areas by Pakistan or in the east by Bangladesh. Oh, and don't forget the Buddhists. In fact, Buddhism actually started in India. Today, the Dalai Lama even takes refuge in Tezpur in the state of Assam. Oh, that was a lot of information. Okay, so by now you can probably get a grasp of how incredibly mixed and diversified India's population is, but what exactly holds the country together? Well, for one, you kind of have to understand Indian history, which will take way too long to explain, but in the quickest way I can put it, Indus Valley, Maurya and Gupta empires, southern empires, Golden Age, Middle Kingdoms, a ton of new religions come flocking in, the north fell to the Delhi Sultanate, the south became the Vijayanagara Empire, the Mughal Empire starts, British East India Company, direct British rule, nationalist movements, independence, republic, economic liberalization in 1991, and here we are today.
Vijaya.
Essentially, India used to be made up of around 500 smaller royal princely states, and when the British came in, they kind of exploited them to manage such a huge population. Although India is a democratic federal republic and the largest democracy in the world, the old royal families still exist today, and although they have no political power, they hold high positions of influence in their communities across India. So today, technically, you could meet someone that would be considered an Indian prince or princess. Nonetheless, the biggest thing that really united Indians in the past 2 centuries would probably be their hatred of British rule. It was kind of like,
Well, this is not cool.
yep.
What do you say you and I work together and end this thing?
Essentially, one good thing you could say that came out of
Okay.
imperialism was that it kind of stopped all the internal squabbling and unified the groups towards one common goal, to get rid of imperialism. Today, Indians are just proud to be Indian. I mean, a Tamil soccer player can get cheered on by a Rajasthani, a Punjabi pop star can sell out tickets in Orissa. Speaking of which, all Indians love movies and music. India has the second largest film industry in terms of volume, pumping out nearly 2,000 films per year. Surprisingly, Nigeria pumps out more. However, the box office revenues
Really?
grows out at only about $2 billion annually compared to Hollywood at over 10 billion, but still, it's impressive. And keep in mind, it's not
I actually, in LA, used to be a film critic and would have to watch some Bollywood movies sometimes, and I really enjoyed them, actually. They were a lot of fun to watch, and I did get exposed more to the Indian culture watching them. They're very high quality, very good, so I do know about Bollywood.
it's not just Bollywood, but it's also Tollywood, Gollywood, Collywood, Pollywood, and so on. There's like 20 different woods in India.
Didn't know about
Like,
all of
every
those,
movie in
though.
India has at least one scene where everybody breaks out in song, and there's
Yeah.
almost always a
Those
happy
were in
ending.
those movies.
Unfortunately, mainstream media has also put an aesthetic strain on many of the people, as it's almost become an obsession to be light or fair-skinned, causing people to go so far as to buy skin bleaching products. Some other controversies
Yeah, that's unfortunate, actually. I feel like I've seen that also in like Japan or Asian countries where they try to look more American or whatever. Like they look up to the American model stereotype. I think it's really unfortunate because you should just embrace whatever you are and your own beauty. You know, Western standards as far as that stuff goes doesn't need to be the standard around the world.
Controversies include things like illiteracy being an issue in many parts of the country, especially in the rural areas. But I mean, come on, when your country has be light or fair-skinned, causing people to go so far as to buy skin bleaching products. Some other controversies include things like illiteracy being an issue in many parts of the country, especially in the rural areas. But I mean, come on, when your country has literally hundreds of different writing systems, go figure. I mean, give them a break.
Yeah.
Also, many of you guys, the Indian geography groups, have asked me to bring awareness to the fact that India does unfortunately have some of the highest rates of human trafficking and child slavery. The government is trying to crack down and culture is slowly being reformed, but for now, it's a sad reality that still does exist. Hey, here at GN, we talk about the good and the bad. I'm just saying. Otherwise, sports do definitely tie everyone together as well, especially cricket, the national sport, even though they also used to do really well in field hockey. India also has a lot of their own indigenous sports like Dopkel in Assam, bull racing in Kerala, Insuknar, rod pushing in Mizoram, and Malakamba, the strange pole yoga gymnastics thing in the south. Otherwise, some notable people from India or of Indian descent might include people like Siddhartha Gautama or the Buddha, Mahavir, Ashoka the Great, Prithviraj Chauhan, Aurangzeb, Shivaji of the Maratha Empire, Mohandas or Mahatma Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose, Jawaharlal Nehru, Rabindranath Tagore, C.V. Raman, Satyendra Nath Bose, Bhagat Singh, Dr.
Props to this guy for being able to pronounce all of this stuff. I don't know how he does it. I don't know what his background is with India, but it sounds like he has some sort of background with India in order to say this stuff so easily. Either that or he just practiced a lot. I don't know.
Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, Shah Rukh Khan, Amitabh Bachchan, Amir Khan, Salman Khan, Priyana Chopra, Ben Kingsley, Sundar Pichai, Satya
Ben Kingsley.
Narayana Nadella, A.R. Rahman, Sachin Tendulkar, and Mahendra Singh Dhoni. There's also literally millions of other famous people I missed out on. If you want to mention them, please, there's a comment section below. Use it. In the meantime, we gotta finish this info marathon, shall we? Now, no surprise, India is huge and therefore has a huge international outreach when it comes to diplomacy to almost everyone, except their immediate neighbors. First of all, countries with large population percentages of Hindus and Indians like Fiji, Guyana, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, Mauritius, and Malaysia typically stay close to India's roster of go-to friends. They enjoy cordial relations with trade. Now, the UK may have left on a sour note, but they still have a lot of ties to their former colonizer in terms of business and tourism. India is still part of the Commonwealth, not Commonwealth realm, there's a difference, and the UK has...
I did some research on the British Commonwealth after my last video on the Queen and whether or not she still had powers and stuff. And so I started researching it and learn more about what exactly the Commonwealth was, because over here in the US we don't really hear about it much, we don't learn about it. I would venture to say that most Americans aren't even aware of the Commonwealth. So anyway, I found it really fascinating and now I kind of know what the Commonwealth is. But I would like to maybe watch a video or two on it, just to kind of reinforce some of that stuff that I read about.
UK has over 1.5 million citizens of Indian descent. As mentioned in the China episode, China is kind of like India's "I'm only here to do business with you and nothing else" friend, as drama still hasn't subsided in regards to the territory conflicts. Now, when it comes to the US, things started kind of sour back in the 70s during the Indo-Pak War of 1971, when the US sided with Pakistan, their arch nemesis. Today, relations have cooled off. Mostly, the US supports India's move towards democracy and is a key ally in the military conflicts in the Middle East. When it comes to their best friends, however, most of the Indians I talked to have said Russia and Bhutan. Russia because during the Indo-Pak Wars, Russia came in and supported them, and ever since then, each country has held a high position of respect for the other, especially as global superpowers. Bhutan and India signed a treaty of friendship almost immediately after independence. The two countries have shared interests and a currency-pegged system as well. Bhutan even supported the annexation of their cousins in the Sikkim state into India, as it gave a nice buffer of land from China's stake to their claim. In conclusion, you will not find anywhere else on Earth like India. Thousands and millions of people inhabiting a colorful, majestic, green, slightly gritty at times slab of earth, blessed and cursed in so many ways, yet wonderfully harmonized, mostly in a unity unlike anywhere else. In the end, that's India. Stay tuned, Indonesia is coming up next.
Okay, so that was fascinating. All I had prior to watching this video was just a very vague idea of what India was like. I don't think I understood just how complex and how diverse it was though, so I'm so glad I watched this video. Of course, it just scratched the surface. There is so much complexity to India. I could probably watch 100 videos on it and still not really dig deep enough. I have to say though, even though the US likes to pride itself on diversity and maybe like geographical climates and stuff like that, I would say that our climates are very similar to what India has. We have pretty much everything here in the US as well, but India kicks our butt when it comes to diversity, it looks like. So yeah, that was a lot of information to take in. Obviously, I'm not going to remember all of it. This is not going to be the last video that I watch on India. We are going to watch Does Britain Know Reparations, because I've had a lot of requests for that one, but if there is another video on India that could further my education, maybe answer some questions that I had in this video, please let me know. I would really like to kind of dig into Asia and Africa and South America, just basically all of the other places outside of the US and Europe that we don't really learn about over here. If you guys can answer any of my questions down below in the comments, you know the drill, please do that, because I do read them and we will use them at some point in comment time on whatever video I do next regarding India. Also, if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you like and subscribe. Roger, what did you think about this video? So it's unanimous, we both really enjoyed it. Tomorrow we will be getting back to our music series for our musical Sundays. We're going to do some more stuff on the Napoleonic Wars in the UK, so make sure you stay tuned for all of that, and we will see you next time.